Welcome to this Times Techies webinar. I'm Sujit John, and I have with me my colleague Akhil George. The two of us will moderate this discussion. Artificial intelligence is what almost everyone in the technology industry is talking about today. So Times Techies started a page focused on AI last week called timestechies.ai. I wish we had been more creative with the name, but sometimes the straightforward ones communicate the message best. NASSCOM is organizing its annual GCC, Global Capability Center Conference next week in Bangalore. We thought we would marry the two, AI and GCCs, and look at how GCCs are viewing AI and the AI work they are doing that is having or potentially will have an impact on the global operations of parent companies. We hear many GCCs are swiftly morphing to do Gen AI POCs, leading the charge in digital transformation. They serve as agile testing grounds for the parent company. They are upskilling talent towards this. And all of that is what we will discuss today. And for that, we have three seasoned professionals. We have with us Tarun Sareen. Tarun is Managing Director of Sun Life Global Solutions. At Sun Life, Tarun plays a pivotal role in the organization's digital enterprise journey. He's responsible for providing high-quality shared services to Sun Life's business partners across the globe. He's part of the Asia Digital Enterprise Leadership Team. Prior to joining Sun Life, Tarun was a managing director and head of corporate banking and investment banking technology in India at Deutsche Bank. He has also run global technology centers of excellence for EMC, Barclays, Microsoft, and General Electric. Welcome, Tarun.
Thank you. Great to be here. Thank you.
We also have Sirisha Voruganti. Sirisha, CEO and Managing Director of Lloyd's Technology Center in India. And she was with us on this platform just a few weeks ago for another discussion. Sirisha brings over 30 years of experience in IT architecture, data engineering, and fintech innovation. She was the first woman managing director for financial services from JP Morgan Chase in technology in India. She was also executive vice president of architecture, data, and shared services for MasterCard. Prior to MasterCard, she worked for Tech Mahindra as a distinguished fellow and head of innovation. She started her career as a scientist with the Defense Labs, working on Prithvi and Nag missiles, as well as India's first indigenously built aircraft, Tejas. Welcome, Sirisha.
Thank you.
And we also have Srikanth Srinivasan. Srikanth is Vice President and Head of Membership and Outreach for NASSCOM. He's currently responsible for the Pan-India membership engagement and growth, and also heads the National Industry Councils of GCC, BPM, and SME. Prior to this, he was Regional Director at NASSCOM, responsible for operations for Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. He has been with NASSCOM since 2014. Prior to NASSCOM, Srikanth worked at multiple companies, including at HCL Infosystems as Regional Director. Welcome, Srikanth.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So those who are viewing this online can send in questions through the Facebook comment box. Sujit and I will put them to Tarun, Sirisha, and Srikanth. So why don't we all just jump into the questions? The first question, it's open to everyone. Whoever wants can take it. What role do GCCs play in driving innovation and research and development for their parent organizations, especially when it comes to AI? Who wants to go first? Srikanth?
Srikanth.
Please go.
Yeah, no, Srikanth will be better. Then we'll add on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Akhil. I think innovation and is a very important and pivotal piece in the whole GCC journey in the country. And if you really look at the whole GCC journey, if you step back and see, today innovation is one of the key parameters or becomes the bedrock of the GCC growth story in India. Why are GCCs in India today? They want to harness, leverage the capabilities that the country offers, and innovation is one key piece that they leverage on. Of course, for a knowledge industry, skill is of course there, but innovation is one key piece that they work on. And if you really look at the spread of GCCs, we have a spread of GCCs, the breadth and the depth of it, in terms of the breadth, in terms of the various industry verticals that we see, the depth in terms of the key organizations in each of these verticals, be it banking and financial services, be it healthcare, be it automotive, be it aerospace. All the key people are there in India. All the key organizations worldwide have a deep presence in India, and all of them leverage this whole innovation piece and the growing startup innovation ecosystem of the country, which is the third largest in the world. They use this in some form or the other to contribute to the larger enterprise growth worldwide.
Specifically on AI, are you seeing a lot of activity that GCCs are doing, setting up COEs around AI and stuff?
Yes, Sujit, I think so. So if you really look at the way GCCs have changed over the years, the last few years, you've seen them, many of them setting up COEs. Initially, in many of the emerging technologies is when it started a few years ago. Now they are metamorphosing that into the AI story too, because many of them did start AI even while earlier, right? While the larger AI story is now here for the last 1.5, 2 years, with more so with the Gen AI picking up. But AI has been here to stay for quite some time, and many of them have been working on it. Probably not talking about it in as much as we are talking today, right? I mean, we've been doing that earlier too. And so many of them have built various areas, even if I don't call them centers of excellence, definitely areas of expertise in their respective domains in AI. And many of them are currently even exploring various kinds of POCs, various kinds of very specific solutions in certain problem areas that they are trying to explore for the parent organization from India, given the talent that is available here.
Sirisha?
So, well, I think as far as GCCs are concerned, over the last 10 years, I mean, from 2010 to 2020, if I look at the number of GCCs, they've actually doubled here in the country. And I believe that's for a reason, right? One, I think it's just that amazing talent pool that various companies want to chip into. And this has happened across sectors. IT, of course, probably is about 45% of that number that's grown in India. And if I look at the next 10 years, it seems to be a super healthy growth that we will have, right? And that growth rate is close to 100+%, which I think is amazing. There are three reasons for anybody wanting to come to India. And I think the first, of course, is the skill that you provide, and that skill across multiple domains. So if I look at areas like digital, if I look at areas like cloud and data and analytics, I think those are three big pockets that we provide in terms of opportunities for companies to come and look at us. And these are also the areas which are innovation beds, I think, for various companies, whether you look at a banking sector or you look at logistics companies or healthcare, edtech, whatever they are. And these are the three big opportunities that we give people. Just AI alone, in terms of investments across GCCs, the numbers that I would see is it's gone up, I think, close to about 2.7 times. It's grown from last year to this year, which I think is again, testament to the fact that companies want to look at India as that hotbed for whether it's a COE, whether it is an innovation lab that they want to set up or solve for the future, which I think is a big opportunity again. So I think it's just it's amazing. And what we as companies need to do probably is really lap up those opportunities in terms of creating a trained manpower, and we'll probably get to that point. But I think AI is going to help us solve many problems. And most of these companies are looking at whether it is retail who want to understand, say, customer behavior, and it's probably the same for a banking sector, or somebody is looking at hyper personalization. All of these, I think, just the opportunities are amazing. And I think we, with our talent pool and training, are actually providing that hotbed for companies.
2.7 times. What is that? I didn't get that, Sirisha.
It's seen, in GCCs in terms of investment into AI from 2023 to 2024. It's actually bumped up 2.7 times already. So, which means, people are investing substantially into AI.
Okay. Where did you get that figure?
Well, this was from it was some search and research that I did.
Okay. Yeah, we'll come to the details later on what exactly you're doing. Tarun?
I think a lot has already been covered by my esteemed panelists. So thank you for that. I feel that 2 or 3 points I would submit to this narrative. One is certainly more and more now than ever before, the global capability centers are really becoming, and so what I like to introduce is global purpose centers. I think as we mature, it's not only about strategic leadership, it's also about taking a point of view of architecting the future of our respective companies, advancing the purpose of our companies in terms of what do the clients want and people who count upon us, what do they want from the company? And as a means to that, innovation, solutioning comes in. So the first arc is the purpose and clients, communities included, what we're doing for community. The second arc is really around what are solutions, health, what are we doing for them? Innovation can help us advance either new solutions. I think Gen AI and AI, and it's not, what I'm going to say is not exactly fully true, but it's partly there. It's a solution that can solve some problems. So I think we should absolutely leverage some of the Gen AI artifacts. AI, we have been using AI and ML to solve problems in a new way or a new set of problems, whether it's for efficiency, productivity, or for the revenue piece, right? I think more and more I think we're getting our hands around the efficiency piece. We should also get our hands around a little bit on what we can do in terms of growth. Finally, I'll say, just to Sirisha's point, that India continues to be among the top. I would like to state the location for GCCs to expand or come in anew. I think one reason for that also is just a culture of innovation, growth, and ambition and progress. Individual level and organizational level. Every individual here wants to do something. We want to get something done, we want to be creative. Sometimes we overdo it, bulking the rules. But I think if we can harness that energy and use it for the benefit of our respective companies to do global good, that'd be wonderful. An example is India Stack, right? I mean, India, you can argue even as a nation, is right up there in terms of a view on digital as well. So I think that's something I like to add, apart from the capability, the culture of this country, especially as it links to the innovation, progress, ambition to do something more, also I think is beautiful.
Tarun, how big is Sun Life Global Solutions in India?
Sujit, I beg your pardon.
How big is Sun Life Global Solutions in India in terms of your operations here?
Few thousand people. So I run, I'm responsible for Sun Life Global Solutions, and we have 2 centers, Philippines and India. So, a little bit over a couple of thousand and more in each of the locations at this point. And we're also thinking about Vietnam. We already have a small team that we started there as well. So, but mainly it's Philippines and India.
So maybe we can touch on what the emerging technologies are. The GCCs in India, what are the emerging technologies they are investing in? And are these technologies driving business value? And attached to that, how are GCCs serving as a proof of concept hub for AI applications? Sirisha, maybe you can start.
Sure.
Some specific examples would really help. Yeah, some good examples would really help.
Sure. So, in terms of areas that we are investing into, cloud happens to be one of our, biggest areas of investment. Because, all of us are in the same journey. I think most companies are moving applications to private cloud, to public cloud, sorry. And so, we are no different, and we need a trained, engineering manpower to be able to do that, whether it is data or the applications, and ensure we bring in a lot of overall, at the end of the day, in terms of ease of development of applications, ease of use of data, better quality of service to customers that we can provide, and so on and so forth. So cloud is one of those big areas that we're looking at. The second is data and analytics, which is another area which is constantly evolving, right? In terms of how do we manage data, how do we architect for data better, as we have so many units of business that actually leverage and use that data. Again, to look at, so it's a bank at the end of the day, and whether it's your credit card or whatever, it should be seamless across any part of the world that you go to. So how do you make that possible? How are you working on ensuring you have the optimal, management of data at the back end? Also, considering the amount of data and considering all the regulatory purposes, how are you managing that data better? Are you able to archive it? Are you able to classify it better? Are you able to cleanse your data better? Do you have the right data governance and so on? So that's another very, very big area of investment for for us. And analytics, definitely. And then the other one I spoke about was digital. Again, considering, and it's not just about talent. I think also our market itself has advanced substantially in all of these areas. And you have many of the, be it Indian banks or companies here that are leveraging all these areas of technology. So I think we are a little ahead, or at least on par with most of the Western economies and countries. So I think that's also another reason that people look at us for, giving that additional help also in these areas. And AI is the new kid on the block that's come in, where you're looking at, but being, working on responsibly on AI to see how it can solve for some of your problems. And I keep calling out these areas of hyper-personalization, or ease of, if you swipe your credit card in any part of the world, it should just work so seamlessly, or for fraud, right? When I say analytics, it could be multiple areas. So all of those are what we look at, and AI is the biggest bet that we are looking at from that standpoint, right? So when I talk about we, I'm talking about across GCCs, but I believe these are the sectors that are extremely interesting for us in terms of investments, and we're making big investments across.
Any hyper personalization example that you can give that you are trying out?
Well, I'll just give a generic example, and it's probably true for any of the financial services. So, for instance, you want to be recognized for you if you from your the moment you probably put your biometric at an airport, and it should be able to tell you or help you with saying, if it knows which location you're traveling to, is able to give you a hotel in that location or whatever, right? So I want that sort of an experience, and I want it to be very non-intrusive, where I don't want to type in something, but my biometric should be able to give my identity, and it should be able to give me at least certain, of those probably recommendations as I go to that location. So things like that, right? I mean, that's just a very, a generic example. But again, I mean, even if you want to look at your, you open your banking account and you don't know about all the newer instruments that the bank has, you would like to, and the bank, based on, your own, the individual, not just the behavioral pattern of the individual, but understanding you in terms of what's your income and what's your spend pattern and things like that. I should also be able to sell you certain offers which say, okay, maybe this is an instrument that you should save in, or this is how you should probably save your money, and these are the buckets and things like that, right? So things like that, is what I'm talking about when I say.
Are you doing some POCs on the GCC here?
Oh yes, so yes, we do on many of these areas.
Yeah, nothing that has been productionized yet, is it?
Not yet. I mean, I'd talk about it maybe a little later, but some of those you wouldn't want to talk about as well. But there are many such, whether it's calculation of mortgage, for instance, or something else. I mean, we're trying to do, work through a lot of these areas. But one benign example that I can probably give you is, which is more internal, and not necessarily customer facing, and not personalization, but it's an AI application that you could use for increasing reuse, probably across across the organization. All of us have our sustainability core goals, and that developing net new code is actually going to cause you, you're going to be heavier on your carbon emissions, whether it is with data centers or it's more data that you're pushing out. So yeah, I mean, we have this huge initiative around looking at reuse, and can something like AI really help us, right? Where based on what you're trying to build out, it can at least suggest to you, saying, there is certain probably snippets of code that you can reuse. But that's a huge problem. It's not a simple problem to solve for, but that's something I believe AI can help with.
Okay, interesting. Tarun?
Yeah, I mean, I can offer you some areas, as Sirisha also highlighted. A lot of them are in progress. Certainly looking at generative AI, and doing some proof of concepts around where it can help us in software engineering. Like, for example, Copilot, I think is an opportunity for developers and people involved in the software development. We have, employee-facing chatbots that can now handle some basic queries. We need to keep on developing it. I think that's the other piece. If I look at our business, both from our asset management as well as from an insurance perspective, so certainly we're taking a point of view of the life cycle, whether it's claims prevention or other areas of automation across the life cycle where we can possibly use AI, especially ML and data analytics as well. I think computer vision has a role to play as well. We can leverage that for risk management. The other two areas that come to my mind that are on top of mind right now as we speak are voice biometrics to authenticate callers who call us into our call centers, for example, facial analytics as well, for looking at health risks and so on and so forth. New technologies are being developed around the health and how do you get to know some vital parameters in a very non-intrusive fashion. I can go on and on. They're just still experimental.
But you're working on you're working on many of these things?
We are working on many of these things and taking a point of view in terms of at least experimenting and doing POC and seeing what's feasible. Something we launched, not really AI, but similar, you could argue, is Metaverse. We started hiring using Metaverse in the Philippines. Hiring through Metaverse and giving people an immersive experience. It can be applied. Metaverse can be applied to other places, for other use cases as well. So just a few, but we are ambitious to keep on experimenting in the right way. I'm certain we'll have failures, possibly miserable ones, but we'll learn from it and keep on going forward.
Srikanth, what about nationally? What are you seeing?
Okay, so maybe I've seen a few examples, and again, all of them are still at a very POC trial stage, but I will give examples in the non-BFIC space, given that both of them have given the banking and insurance space. I've seen a lot of work happening in retail, where more of the whole predictive piece is happening. People are actually looking at how you as a customer are walking into a retail store and how it actually knows your past, can predict basis your past buying and behavior, can suggest the right product. It even in large mega stores, it even tells you where to go. It actually takes the GPS and tells you which part of the store it is there, so that you don't go around searching for the product, right? You know where to go. It even throws up the right offers and so on and so forth. This offer is valid for the next 15 minutes. So you rather go there and pick up that product before the offer is over, then go to the next and so on. So people are working on such things. Again, and as Sirisha rightly said, hyper personalization. Actually, I think now we are going 2 steps deeper. Hyper became micro, and I think some of this is actually nano personalization. It is to the last level, to the micro level of the individual, right? It's exact to come to that level, and especially in a retail kind of a segment where the needs are extremely changing from person to person, individual to individual. Some of these things will actually go a long way, and more so in today's world where people, time is a big constraint, right? People want it fast. So I think people will value this even more because I walk into a store and I have a defined timeline and I get everything done in that timeline because the suggestions are absolutely right. That's one. On the emerging piece, some of the other cases we're seeing largely in the AR/VR space is where people are leveraging this more so in the manufacturing and the aerospace kind of industries, where you can't, things are not portable so easily, right? So how do you kind of train people, create simulations in the AR/VR space so that people can get trained even if they are not very close to the actual product? The other piece, the other side of this is the whole use case on how this can be used for maintenance of heavy equipment and things like that, where heavy equipment cannot be moved, but how do you kind of use it? The expert need not be there at the site of the equipment, but can guide a semi-skilled person at the site through the AR/VR route, and then guide that person to make the changes, and then you can get the equipment up and running. So these are some of the good use cases we are seeing in some of the emerging technologies.
You've seen a big step up in, AI kind of POCs and all that across, Srikant?
Yes, we do. Again, I think none of them are, as I said earlier, most of them are not completely live, not at the client end, but of course, a lot of work is going on at the internal end, where people are experimenting POCs. And again, it's also rightful, right? I mean, you would not want to take something which is not fully baked right to the customer, and while mistakes are acceptable, but you wouldn't want to make that. So people are being doubly and triply careful to ensure that some of these are carefully checked, and hence the POCs are longer than the usual cycle.
Sirisha, you mentioned security. I mean, so both of you, Sirisha, both of you are in the whole insurance and banking and all that. Security obviously is a huge issue. Do you see Gen AI playing a huge role there? I mean, I've been telling often this on these platforms. We are, as news reporters, we are seeing our city reporters covering a lot more of online fraud stories that are happening now. Yeah, just a few years ago we wouldn't hear as many, but now it's like crazy the amount of money people are losing and all that. Do you see AI playing a role in kind of containing this?
In fact, I think that's one of the biggest use cases for AI, right? Where you are able to create risk models and ensure and plug it into your the larger system where you and I'll tell you a couple of examples. It could be somebody coming in and saying, I'm so and so customer. So you would probably build out a voice biometric sort of a solution where you are able to identify, and this could be the second level or third level authentication that you introduce, which says that this is a fraudulent customer, right? The second thing could be about your credit history, right? All these credit scores that come out for yourself the moment you want to set up as you're doing your KYC with any bank. It'll just help us. I think AI is just going to help us do a lot of this faster, where it'll talk about your credit scores, and there's no manual intervention. There's really no paperwork there, but you're able to call out really quickly in a matter of seconds, saying this is not a customer. It'll probably be a bad loan if you give it to this particular customer because the credit history has been bad. So yeah, I think there are many such use cases, right? It could also be that there are certain customers, that, and this is probably in more a retail example than a banking example, where you find a certain set of customers who keep buying products and then returning the products as well. Okay, after a certain period. So there is a certain period that you have beyond which returns are not accepted. So they keep buying products and then return the product. Now, when you see such behavior, you actually trigger off, a fraud, because you don't want to sell to this customer anymore in the future, and you actually blacklist the customer, right? Because they're trying out the product and then, for some time and then returning it after that period. So there is a lot. I mean, credit card is another big place where you see a lot of credit card frauds, right? So fraud, I think, is one of those biggest, use cases that we have. And I keep talking about just being very careful, because if we are creating threat models, threat scenarios, risk models and everything, there is also anti-patterns that are being created by AI. And so there's a lot of, that's where I think the right governance, etc., needs to be put in place before all of us. There's this hype around AI, but before it becomes bigger and bigger, I think those guardrails should be, very well defined and laid out. Otherwise, as I said, we could do it for good purposes, but at the same time, you could do it for other purposes as well.
Yeah. Srikant, you have a hand up? Did you?
No,
do you want to say something? Okay.
No.
Tarun, you're also using security as a big area for you?
Yes, I mean, I mentioned, just as a passing example, voice metrics and so on and so forth. But I think Sirisha summarized it so comprehensively. There's nothing I can add more than examples. I think the threat piece, the threat modeling, and the anti piece of it as well. I think we have to absolutely have our eyes on this. You could argue that AI and Gen AI could have or can advance even more speedily had we answered some of the security threats already. So I think we are taking steps, we in the sense as an industry, I would like to assume we are taking steps very deliberately to make sure that it's used in the right way and it progresses us and in a way that we're taking new threats into account as well. So we have nothing more I can add to what Sirisha mentioned. I think she summarized it very, very well.
Okay.
Maybe we can touch on leadership roles. All of these GCCs, a lot of them are quite matured now. Do all of you see leadership role, Indians achieving leadership roles in India?
Yeah, I mean, if I can go first.
Please.
Yeah, a topic very close to my heart. The reason being in GCC, depending upon how you're designed, what's the charter, and how you're achieving the charter, it is such a, I would say, I've been in GCC now for over 20 years. And I have to say, this is perhaps the most fertile time when more and more leadership from India is actually seeing the light of the day. Something I got from McKinsey long time ago was an L model, where the vertical part of the L is actually the globally global roles that are being played out of the GCC, and the horizontal part of the L is the supporting role. I would like to believe that now there's more and more opportunity to play global roles as opportune in the company. I think the purpose and the objectives of the companies we work for, that's number one. And then the global talent, how we can support that purpose, that overall objective comes into play. So I see a lot more happening. I see capability in India, specifically second to none. Yes, sometimes you may not have the advantage of a long tenure in the company and understanding the clients and so on and so forth. So you have to, obviously there are challenges, but it's amazing to see the kind of leadership roles now being played out of GCCs in India as well as the rest of the world, by the way, but we won't talk about it now, but the rest of the world as well. We recently had this Times article. I don't know whether it was by you, Sujit, or someone, 5,000 plus. I don't know whether there's the right number or even more than that.
Leaders,
leadership roles being played.
That figure came from Zinov, I think. Yeah, no, we wrote that story. That's right. Sirisha, particularly AI leadership and all that, how easy is that to find to lead these big projects?
So I'll just probably, give you some examples here. I think, and I said this last time when we met as well, Sujit, I think leadership roles are not what you ask for, but they actually happen because you have the right capability and you have, the ability to actually execute some of those. And much of that happens, with the investments that we make into these technologies. And I just don't mean monetary investments. I believe individual investments of time and effort that you put in to kind of hone these skills. So I really never believe that there is a limitation on an opportunity within any GCC. I believe. I think the moment you have the right skills, you have the right capability to actually lead certain areas of technology, roles will definitely happen. And I say the same thing when somebody builds a product as well. Don't always think about, how much of it am I going to sell? Instead, think about how you can make the best product and the sale, and get it out at the right time. The sale will automatically happen, right? Because people want something, and that's what you're satisfying at, of course, a certain price point that you have. So I think it's the same for leadership roles as well. Develop the skill. I think there are no. No two ways to that. Ensure we really work deeply into certain domains, especially for skills like AI or cloud or whatever. and ensure you are actually generating that sort of value that the company looks at, right? If it's talking about productivity gains, if it's probably the best fraud and analytics solution that the market has, keep constantly benchmarking what you're creating and what you're developing, and I think the rest will happen. So I'm a firm believer in that, Sujit.
Yeah. Shrikant, you want to add to that?
Go ahead, Shrikant.
Yeah. Okay. No, I completely agree with what Sirisha said, right? I mean, getting the global roles into India is a natural progression of the whole GCC journey in the country, right? If you look at the GCC journey, and again, yeah, while it looks a little dated, but I think it's very important to kind of tie this to see how the whole GCC journey across each wave has been. So if you look at the wave, the current wave, the wave 3 and the wave 4, what has happened is from an area where we were probably doing something at an arbitrage to moving to excel in a particular area. Today, I think that excellence of a particular area has expanded. It's become a center of excellence. It's become an area of expertise, not just in the country, but for the enterprise as a whole globally. And hence, what happens is when you start getting into those niche areas of expertise, then you don't ask for the global role, but it is a natural choice. It comes to you by the capability and the skill that you have built into that role. And that's how it has come. So I think it has been a good natural progression. And in my view, this probably is like a watershed moment where this can come to a point from here, it can only grow exponentially. Because
Absolutely.
the, because the amount of capability that each one of the GCCs have built in their respective organizations, each one has built across multiple domains, not just one field. While some of the domains could have been early movers, some could have been late movers, it does not matter. But each one has built that expertise in that particular area. The second is many of them started with a tech expertise, but today each one of them has imbibed the domain of that particular business also so very well. And every time it's not easy because some of them have India businesses running where it's very easy. But many of them, or a good share of them, also don't have business or direct customer business in India. But despite that, imbibing the domain so deeply also matters a lot. So I think today it is a very rightful ask in that sense, or a rightful progression for them to get that global role. And again, the numbers keep changing, Sujit. I think, yeah, you said 5,000. There are talks of 7,000, 8,000. I don't know. It's not easy to put a right number to it, but either which way, wherever we are, whether it is 5,000 or 8,000, I think this is here to stay and only grow more. So I think that's the way I would look at it.
I would absolutely agree. I'll have to interject and add something to what Sirisha as well as Shrikant mentioned. I think earn it. I think our sentiment has to be own the responsibilities, the high-level responsibilities, and that's where my conversation on purpose goes, right? Owner's mindset for your respective companies, right? Go above and beyond and do whatever it takes, whether it's technology, whether it's operations, whether it's actuarials, whether it's business function. I think the right leadership in a GCC can make a huge difference. So own it. Also, I think it is, submit the sentiment. I also think it is really, I use the word fertile. I think Shrikant used even a better word, watershed moment. I think it's really our responsibility as leaders of our respective companies, whatever roles, whatever titles, to further not only the capability, like innovation, but also to advance the culture of a company, right? For example, in Sun Life, one of the culture elements for us is digital. We want to be more like a startup mindset, right? I think it's important for us to take hold of the culture of a company and be those culture advancers, culture carriers, as well as leaders. Very important. One is a value, business value bringing. The other is cultural element as well. I think that's super, super important. We're doing a lot of things around that front and practices that can start here and that can go global. One is products that can be started here and can go global. The other is products that start anywhere in the company and you participate in it as well. But I think the more and more you can display higher order leadership, I think the more India is going to achieve this in a right way. Care for the community, care for clients, care for your colleagues. I think all of these, they count upon us. So I think that's important for us at GCC especially. And it's sometimes tougher because if you work in a Indian company, the ownership is there by default. But here, sometimes you have to earn that as you're growing. We're just starting up, and some have started, but they're still going to the next stage. So
Yes.
Very good to hear this. Yeah, natural progression, like you said. I mean, we are building solid products, and therefore, naturally, leaders are also emerging. Several questions coming in, Akhil. Let me just put this to. I've got one from Rajat Vibhas asking: incorporating Gen AI into legacy tech ecosystems will create challenges for enterprises. How can organizations overcome this, and how can GCCs bring in agility to the decision-making process in Gen AI implementations?
So, well, I think, when you look at legacy systems, there are multiple things that you have to look at in terms of just the longevity of some of those components, right? Some of them could be, just a year that you want those systems because you are building that functionality into newer applications. So, which means you need to make those decisions on do you want to just lift and shift those applications? You really don't want to, build them to the modern tech stack because they're probably no longer going to be required. So when you make those sort of decisions across an application where you want to, across a company where you want to look at your entire app footprint and say some of these are applications that will be sunset. We'll require them for, say, a year. And so we don't want to invest too much in it. We'll just lift and shift them. There's a second set of applications that have maybe a 2 to 3 year window. And so you want to build them, but you know that there are target state places where they are going to be. And then you know that there are applications that are going to have a much longer lead life where you'd like to go full hog in terms of building them to modern engineering practices, whether it is you want to have microservices, you want to have, the way they're going to work with each of the microservices. So, all of that. So I think things like Gen AI could help substantially with, as you're, classifying these applications and looking at your own investments that you want, tech investments that you want to make as you are modernizing the entire organization. That's one. The second thing that I talked about, and not necessarily again for legacy alone, is the reuse, right? Where things like Copilot, etc., can actually be used so that you are optimizing on the amount of new build in organizations. The third thing could be, again, for data, you could actually look at a lot of that legacy that you have. There's a lot of duplication of data that many of us have in our systems. So can deduping happen because of AI? So if you look at AI and its use, there are many, many such use cases as we are trying to go modern on technology, I believe. I don't know if that helps answer the gentleman's question, but this is my view of it.
Okay.
I'm sure it does. I know, Rajat. So I think I know the context. Rajat, I'm going to assume. I don't want to assume too much. But I think the other thing I'll add also to what Sirisha mentioned is it depends on the company and the context you're working in. I have been part of companies where we actually stood up a new entity because we wanted to do re-architecture right from ground up. So then you partner with the digital natives and you stand up a system right from ground up if it matters so much for the company. So that's the other, it's more of a disruptive, you're going to call it transformational way of doing it. That is also a model in the industry. Not something we're doing with the Sunlight, but I'm just saying in general, as an industry, I know that I was privy to this model in one of the previous companies I worked in to do that as well, partnership with our digital natives.
Okay.
We have a question from Mukesh Kannan. He asks, is there a big difference in AI strategy or approach for GCCs compared to other tech organizations?
If you want a clear answer, it is no.
No, there
wouldn't be, right?
Better answer, not word.
Mukesh Kannan's doubt has been cleared.
Sachin Mathur asking this question for Srikanth. Are you seeing a change in the perception of the parent organization when it comes to setup of new GCCs in India, where they start by setup of innovation AI / Gen AI capability upfront instead of waiting for GCCs to mature?
Great question. I think we are seeing the change. The reason is this, right? I mean, there's always this early movers or the late entrants, right? So people who have been here for a couple of decades have probably gone through the entire cycle, have starting small, starting with the low hanging and slowly maturing with time and getting into innovation and things like that. But what the pattern we have seen in the last few years is organizations who are now setting up their GCCs are directly jumping into the fast lane. They're directly getting into the more important, the more domain specific kind of work. And when they get into such things, obviously the use cases are many more, the problems that they encounter are many more globally, and hence they using the larger innovation ecosystem, etc., becomes even more imperative. And obviously the innovation ecosystem is definitely a good thriving one, and they are definitely leveraging this. Yes, we see the change in the patterns.
The reason is because they have now confidence in India that they can do all of this. And
absolutely. One is confidence, and secondly, I think it's also the timing, right? I mean, what you did 20 years ago, if you have gone through a journey 20 years ago, you don't have to do the same journey today. I mean, a GCC who came in 20 years ago started with the low hanging and kind of grew through the various chains and cycles over the years. But you don't have to do that today, because today you have a larger GCC ecosystem which is there to tell you what are the right things to do, what are not the right things to do, right? You can learn from their mistakes and then jump into the fast lane. That's what people are doing today.
I think it is I'll even mention this because I'm also the NASSCOM chair, one of the regional councils, and we are all part of the same industry. It is also a collective responsibility to at least do our bit to share learnings that can be incorporated, right? Not concepts alone, but lessons from the battlefield. This is what is work for us. Whenever somebody wants to listen, I think it's also a collective responsibility to share more. I think that's super important. The other thing I'll mention very quickly is also I feel India can play an amazing role given the density of GCC. If you look at the world spectrum, the density of GCCs in India, I think we can play a great role also in promoting other geos as needed, as warranted. So I think it is important for us to look at our global leadership from the GCC perspective as well, apart from product perspective, platform perspective, culture perspective. So that's a little bit of my small dream that India gets recognized for spreading some great culture across the globe.
Absolutely. I think NASSCOM is actually facilitating a lot of this. And I really like those roundtables that NASSCOM calls many of us to. Every time there's probably a new GCC that wants to be set up, some of us are called in to share our experiences with the new entities that do want to come in. And I think that's an amazing sharing of knowledge because, they know what works, what doesn't work, because we have all our experience to talk about. And I think they are starting, like you rightly said, Shrikant, from a different level because they don't have to go through the grind that the early starters had. And the new guys could actually take off from, a way ahead. So, yeah.
No,
So thanks.
So you're saying whenever a new GCC wants to come in and approaches NASSCOM, you typically have a round table where you bring in.
Correct. So what we do, Sujit, is I think most of them approach us, and then what we do is try to give them the larger view of the Indian tech ecosystem, and then in whichever city or more than one city too, if they're exploring, we try and get them to a table where they get to meet like-minded GCCs, sometimes same domain, sometimes even other domains, but in the same geography, so that they get to learn, right? I mean, we definitely don't want any one of them to repeat the mistakes of the past. So they definitely want them to learn from what has happened in the past so that their journey is one smoother and definitely faster. So and these roundtables, these discussions, these group discussions, sometimes one-on-ones. In fact, many of them, I would want to use this opportunity to even thank all of the GCC leaders for actually doing this, right? Many of them are willing to host them to come to their premises, come to their campuses, meet them, talk to them, right? I mean, that's the kind of hand-holding that is done across the country.
Oh, nice.
I think it's a wonderful community, thanks to NASSCOM and to other players here as well, that we exchange learnings from one another. So, for example, if we have either our offsite or some visitors or other moments when we're getting together on a strategy, we actually invite other GCC leaders to a roundtable. And those are really very, very useful because there are closed door tips and what we're going through.
Very nice. I think historically also NASSCOM has played this. I remember Harish Mehta and all talking about how when GCC's early days of
Correct.
GCCs, I mean, you told the IT services guys not to see them as competition, but to kind of work together.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Collaborate.
I really don't think maybe it's competition, maybe very small, but most of it is very symbiotic because GCC are really about niche. We're not going to scale necessarily. Not all, some do, but not necessarily, right? So I think it's a partnership actually.
Absolutely.
It's a win-win, right? I mean, that's the way it has to be looked at.
So
it's never a competition.
Even with
Absolutely.
startups, right?
Even with startups.
Getting some of the technology, that's a win. So it's a win-win. Yeah. Sorry, Srikanth. It is a
yeah. So what does the future look like now for GCCs? Considering the growth trends that we've touched on, that's happened for the last 2-3 decades. What does the future look like? Who wants to predict the future first?
Well, none of us have that ball that we can stare into.
We are not.
Sujit, you go first on this one.
We are not. None of us are soothsayers here. We can't predict. We are not astrologers. But I think predictions, basis numbers, I think as we speak, I guess I know that the numbers are about 1,600 plus GCCs in the country. And I think when I say 1,600 GCCs, I talk of them of unique organizations, 1,630 plus to be very precise. But in terms of the number of centers they have, obviously many of them have multi-geography within the country. Many of them have more than one center in the same city too. So if you count all that, it is more than 2,700 centers. And what we expect is this will move, the 1,630 plus will kind of touch around 1,900 is what we are predicting in the next few years. Maybe the later part of this decade, maybe 26, 27 kind of a thing. So that's a good close to 20% plus kind of a growth. Even in terms of the contribution, the export contribution, currently, I think it is about, of the 199, 200 billion export, the GCC contribution is about 46, 47 billion. We expect that as we touch the 1900 mark, we expect that also to touch about 60 billion. So that's the kind of span we are seeing there. Even employment base is expected to grow up with whatever we are talking around us, the employment too. Currently at say about a 1.66 million is what we are, right? Against the industry base of about 5.4, 5.46. That also is likely to kind of edge towards the 2 million mark. So if you really look at it, all the three parameters, the revenue, the people, and the organizations, all of them hover between 18-20% to about 25%. That's what we're seeing in the next 2 to 3 years.
So Srikanth called out all the, the nice things that are going to happen. But I think there are certain fundamental things that all of us need to do to get to that, to get to all of that investment coming in and us delivering onto those investments. I think the first thing, of course, is skilling, upskilling, cross-skilling our guys to be probably the best data science engineers and understanding AI, ML really, really well. And again, the second, of course, would be how they can responsibly use AI, because as I said, it could go, both ways. So I think those are going to be really, really important as we kind of build a population that could solve. There are many others which exist in GCCs that have existed, where there is probably, if you look at many firms, in the GCC is where you have the largest footprint of businesses. So there is, if you look at inter-business collaboration and creating solutions that could help to businesses, it's probably best done in a GCC, because under one roof you have all of them, which doesn't happen in most parts of the world. So I think there are all of those things that we really need to start learning to leverage within an organization, as well as really training people, and even investments in schools. I think that's also something that we need to do, because we cannot generate this pool of people from within the GCCs alone or from within one GCC. So I think it's very important for the industry and academia collaboration to increase, where you say, are we having the right data science curriculum in the schools, and are we able to push that in? Because we have a lot of ready now people that come into the market that can be picked up by the industry as we see it growing. So I think there's a lot of back end that we need to do before we get that silver lining.
What talent constraints are you seeing, Sirisha, when you want to do, let's say, a Gen AI POC? Are you able to quickly find people who can do it and all that? How does it work?
Well, the answer is no. You can't find ready-made talent at this point in time, and that's true for any evolving technologies, right? All of us, I think, sometimes look for these supermen who have all the skills, and superwomen who have all the skills that can come and code. No, that's not something that's available. That's where I think we need to upskill and cross-skill within organizations. We need to have those courses defined within. We can use mechanisms like hackathons or whatever else, where we increase the awareness and bring a lot of people to the table. But I think there is that investment at a level before that as well, where that's where I was saying we need to look at schools, we need to look at universities in terms of the sort of curriculum that we want people to have, so that they come more ready into the industry. And that's when these ambitions that we as a country have to actually generate this sort of revenue, I think, from this industry, it's just going to go up. If we don't do that, then we actually spend a lot of time training people to actually work on problem statements that we have. And the second is also about, I think, when I say industry academia collaboration, it's more than just the students, that are probably doing undergrad and PG courses, but there is also research, I think, that we need to look at to see how the university and industry can collaborate a lot more. Suppose we're talking facial algorithms. I mean, do we have are we investing enough into our research students to be able to create those best facial recognition algorithms, for instance? So things like that. So I think it's a chain that we need to really work on.
True.
Not necessarily just one part of it.
That's right.
Absolutely. I know we are almost out of time. Yeah. One of GCC optimists was saying that future Satya Nadellas will be sitting out of India.
Why not?
I really think it's got to be. I'm assuming Sirisha, Shrikant, you'll agree. I just think sitting when I'm sitting with the experiences I'm seeing and the opportunities I'm seeing in front of us, it's a full stack leadership and a broad spectrum leadership. You can basically improve a lot of the foundations in India or wherever the GCC is, Philippines, as you go about serving your company, right? You can improve academia, you can have courses there. I mean, there's just so much you can do. And, we already have this 2% PAT, so on and so forth. You can invest in the right way. You can fuse goodness into the system. There is just so much. So my call to myself first and my team is be the best leaders you can be. This is the time to do. It has always been a time for good leaders, but this is a time you have much more opportunity if you're really ownership minded and you're broad as well as deep. This is the time. Do more for academia, do more for our clients. So I think with that, India or wherever the GCCs will prosper. I think ambition is secondary to purpose and values is how I see. Yes, you got to be ambitious, but above ambition comes what are you doing for people who count upon your company. So I think constantly thinking about that, coming up with solutions, platforms is the way to go. Innovation, capability building, digital skills are all input towards serving your end client. So you have to think of that, at least at the senior most levels, if not across organization. So it's very, very important for us to take that point of view and make this the best decade for GCCs, because that's how we operate today.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, one quick last, since we are supposed to talk a little more on this Gen AI POCs, when do you see them getting productionized on a big scale, Sirisha, Tarun?
Go ahead. Sirisha, go ahead.
Well, I think there are some which are already, being demoed within the companies, of course. But I would see them at scale probably by maybe closer to the end of this year, because 2023 was probably the beginning of Gen AI, where so much came into the market. And 2024 is where you start investing and trying things out and trying to build solutions. So I think end of this year is when you'll see a barrage of those POCs seeing the light of the day, where a lot of them could be, taken to production perhaps, or I feel 2024 is very optimistic.
Okay. Tarun?
Similar, I think internally we have already productionized a few things. I think we have POCs that can go external. I think certainly this year, and keep on scaling it for the next year as well. So short answer, internal already happening. I already get insights on my team members through GenAI, by the way. It also creates an email for me to reply to them, so I can just, and I sometimes feel, I hope I'm not manipulating the tech part of my job, right? But again, I think this is same answer as Sirisha. I think this year and then more next year, we are hoping. But I'll tell you this, Sujit, nothing replaces natural intelligence.
Okay, Shrikant?
Yeah, I think we hear the same thing. I think most of the people that I talk to are saying it'll just still take a little time. Where I think people do not want to jump into the live game straight away, and I think people are trying to ensure, be doubly sure, perfect the whole thing well before they hit the market. So I think I would see the later part of this year, early next year as well. Really, most of these will become a reality. And before and last but not the least, and I want to agree with Sirisha completely on the whole skilling piece, because all the good part of the growth is what we see, but skilling, whether it's organic and inorganic, will have to be the bedrock of building the base for the growth of the future. And I think whichever organization it may be, organic, whether you're going to colleges, academia, etc., or inorganic, as in working with your existing workforce, the ones who are already there, both of it has to happen in tandem to ensure the growth happens eventually, because that's going to be because this is a knowledge market, right? I mean, I think everything is knowledge, so it has to be grown both sides.
Okay, so some great solutions.
I will share one thing very quickly to qualify what I meant by natural intelligence. I was holding a town hall with 200 managers at one of our nice hotels in Bangalore. I think it was Bangalore, maybe it was, I think it was Delhi, sorry. And we had a chat GPT-like listener for my presentation, and we did a Q&A, which I think it was Nia, that she would answer the questions posed to me. And only if those answers were not complete would I add on. And it was pretty good. So I think we got to, so a lot of the Q&A were handled by my bot versus me. And I only have to interject a little bit. So that tells us we got to keep on upping our game as humans.
Absolutely.
To imagine even a better future and have, what technology can do, let it do. What humans can do, humans must do.
The human ingenuity has to continue.
Yeah.
No, but that's a dangerous thing if you're going to have a town hall with a bot, because
Well,
I
right.
think there
Well,
are
right.
some other issues that people call out saying it was not personal at all.
No, it's nice, and I was still on the stage, so it was a tag team. Do it; it's fun. It's fun.
Oh, I think some great solutions emerging. I guess, but as all of you said, by the end of this year, next year, we'll probably see some fascinating solutions emerging. Hey, thank you all for such a great discussion. Of course, all of you mentioned that skilling is still very important for GCCs to keep growing, maturing, and that's something that from government and companies, everybody need to get into. So thanks a lot, Sirisha, Tarun, Shrikant. Wonderful having you on this platform.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you, Akhil. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye.